Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to our Monday meeting. Just so you know, the hotel is having an issue with their air conditioning, if you haven't been able to tell. So if you see the folks up here start taking their jackets off, that's why. It's really warm under these lights. Today we welcome Ford Bennett, one of our own Rotarians, to talk about life in the military with us. But before we get going, I'm going to invite Butch Kruger to come up and give a reflection, followed by the pledge, which is going to be led by Tom Blakely.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for good food and fellowship here each week as we meet freely under the canopy of safety due to the men and women locally, regionally, and nationally who keep us safe and secure as Americans. God bless America. Amen.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Butch and Tom. And thanks to our sponsor this month, 2Scale, through the end of June. And then we'll start over again. And if you're interested in being a sponsor, please go ahead and contact the office, and they'll help you out. Bob Amfor, would you come introduce our visiting Rotarian?
President Sharon, we have one visiting Rotarian today, and if you would please stand as I read your name and remain standing until President Sharon welcomes you. Our visiting Rotarian is John Ficcarilli from the Lima Rotary.
Welcome, John. We've got a packed schedule for you today, so I'm going to move right into guests. If you have a guest, would you please bring your guest to the mic and introduce them?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Jim Burke. He's a friend of a lot of Rotarians here, and he came specifically to hear the speaker today. Thank you.
Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
President Sharon, it's my pleasure to introduce Tom Zor, son of our longtime Rotarian Sam Zor. And he's a prospective member for Toledo Rotary, and if he's admitted, he might take us back to singing our 4 favorite songs once in a while. So please welcome Tom.
Welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I have with me here today Larry Smith, Financial Services.
Larry, welcome.
President Sharon, I can't believe this is the last time I get to say this. President Sharon, it's my pleasure to introduce the mother of our speaker and my good friend Ann Sanford and Brian Smith.
Ann and Brian, welcome. I hope you all enjoy our program today, and thanks to our guests and visiting Rotarian for being with us. It's a good time to check in with your social media. Again, tell them you are at the Rotary Club of Toledo Monday meeting, enjoying yourselves. And once you've done that, please silence your phones, put them away. Last time I get to ask you to do this. And again, I encourage you to check in and then check out and give yourself the gift of Rotary for an hour. Zach Isaac, will you please come to the floor mic for an announcement?
Thank you, President Sharon. Brent Coos and I are very pleased to have hopefully our final announcement for this year. We have 55 new members and 2 in the hopper, thanks to this group, what we call our new member committee. Sharon had asked me to do a few highlights of the new member committee, what we had done this year. 2 weeks ago, we had the Rotary on the River, which was our first cruise on the Sandpiper. We had over 63 people there, a nice mixed crowd, and we appreciate everybody participating. Our next opportunity is the golf outing at the Toledo Country Club on July 12th. Hopefully Walt's going to put that up there. It's a scramble, max of 48 players. Everyone is invited. This is not a under 40 event. We want everybody to be there. Shotgun starts at 5:30. on the back nine, scramble format. If you cannot play golf, we would encourage everyone to come for the fellowship, the cocktails and hors d'oeuvres at 7:30 on the 16th Terrace at TCC. A couple of the things that we're pleased to share with you. On our recruiting events this year, we had 5 of them. One was at the Heights Bar, Toledo Spirits Distillery, the Tin Can Bar, and of course the Sandpiper Cruise. We believe it was from these events that we had a lot of these new members, and we want to continue doing that next year. Our recent meeting, our goal is to have an event quarterly for everyone, old as well as young members. And our goal this next year is to try to do some behind-the-scenes events at various locations within the city, such as the zoo, the symphony, the opera, Maritime Museum. So we do want to thank you for a successful year. The good news is we've got some new people that are going to be co-chairing with Brent and me next year, and we look forward to your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zach. Today we're dedicating our meeting to membership, particularly apropos that we have a member speaking with us today. But, much has been done in the last year to increase the membership in our club and to engage our members. We've worked really, really hard. Your fellow Rotarians have worked really, really hard this year, not only on increasing the membership in the club, but also on increasing our member engagement. Now, typically, I want to really put this in perspective for you. Typically, every year, we really struggle to be 1 or 2 plus by the end of the year. This year, I project we'll be somewhere between 20 to 24 plus. So this really puts into perspective what's been done. And it gives me great honor and pleasure. So we have so many new Rotarians. We're going to take a few moments. These are the Rotarians that have now been members of our club for 6 months. They now have their white badges. And as I read your name, I'd like you to stand. And please hold your applause to the very end. Todd Ahrens, Director of Development with the Toledo Museum of Art. Rachel Bach, President of Connect Toledo. Trey Bauman, Financial Analyst with Dana. Ford Bennett, Financial Advisor with Morgan Stanley. Cheryl Buzinski, Attorney with Shoemaker, Loop & Kendrick. Joe Conda, retired, what a nice word. Kirk Davis, VP GM of Toledo Building Services. Jack Dempsey, President of Mercy. Please stay standing. If I call your name, please stay standing. President of Mercy, St. V Medical Center. Joel Edwards, VP General Manager of Faster. Steve Everett, VP of Business Development for MadAv Group. Andy Fox, VP of HCC Rare Coins. Rachel Gagnon, Director of Business Development for Sunshine Communities. Nate Gregg, GM of Welch Packaging. Mike Harders, VP for Advancement, University of Toledo. Candace Harrison, External Communicator and Director for TPS. Brian Heedy, CEO of Concentric Group. Hannah Marode, Director of Customer Service for Toledo Building Supplies. Tim Murphy, Senior Project Manager, Civil and Environmental Consultants. Lou Rosenblum, GM for the Toledo Country Club. Randy Rothenbuer, CFO, Walt Churchill's Market. Kent Sackman, President, Concentric Group. Matt Sapara, VP of Mercy Health. Dennis Schroeder, CEO of Arquita. If I said that wrong, I apologize. Kathy Selking, Manager of Development for Toledo County Lucas Library. Nelson Schaefer, President of Citizens Bank. Demetria Simpson, CEO of Lucas County Metro Housing Authority. Jordan Stoll, Director and Communications for PR for Central Catholic High School. And Francis Viviano, President of Bart's Viviano, who could not be with us today. For those who do not know, Sandy Viviano, Frank Sr.'s wife, passed away, so we're sorry to hear that. And with that, I'm going to welcome all our members. Thank you for being with us. We have 4 new members being introduced today. And Katie Zurek is going to start by introducing Molly Zurek. Katie's been a member since 2014. Susan Palmer will then introduce Vicki Stouffer. Susan's been a member since 2013. And Brent Kuzno, a member since 2011, will introduce Jeff Stegman and Mike Abernathy. Katie.
Today I'd like to introduce my favorite sister-in-law, Molly's Rake. Molly's from Sylvania, Ohio. She's the daughter of Tom and Mary Rake. She attended Indiana University, where Molly earned a bachelor's degree in economics. She's president of Boz Group, which is a telecom service management company based in Toledo. She's been the president since 1993. Molly's directed hundreds of complex client projects, resulting in millions of dollars in operational savings for her clients. Under Molly's leadership, Boz stands as a trailblazer in the strategic management of communications, technology, and expenses for clients for both large and small companies, including multinational and Fortune 500 companies. Molly's executive VP at the Society of Communication Technology Consultants. She engages as a member of the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, as well as the youth grieving support organization Good Grief. She also supports the Toledo Arts Commission. Molly is married to Mark Brown, and together they have 3 very bright young boys who are energetic and extremely free-spirited. When she's not running a successful company and chasing around 3 boys, Molly enjoys yoga, tennis, cooking, traveling, hiking, skiing, and reading. Her pet peeve is people who do not listen. Please join me in welcoming Molly Zarek to the Toledo Rotary.
President Sharon and fellow Rotarians, get out your checkbooks because we have a new advancement officer in our club. Vicki Stouffer is the newest member of the Lourdes University team, and she is Vice President for Institutional Advancement. Vicki grew up in Southern Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. She attended Bowling Green State University and received her MBA from the University of Findlay, something that her seconder, my husband Tom, likes since he grew up in Findlay. Vicki is a pro at raising dollars, having held senior advancement positions at Oberlin College, Case Western Reserve College of Medicine, and most recently, Central Michigan College of Medicine. While Vicki is new to her position at Lourdes University, she is not new to the area because she lived in Perrysburg most of the 90s and worked at the Sophia Lustig shop. Vicki's wonderful husband of 16 years, Dan Knopp, is a hospital administrator and an Episcopalian priest who, this is a great husband, he left his job to follow her. And she says that he is very patient and balances her type A personality perfectly. Vicki has 3 sons, all married, living in sea cities, Columbus, Chicago, and Catawba Island. She is a voracious reader and has started several book clubs in cities where she lived. She loves to cook, especially with the products from farmers' markets. And one of the things of which she is most proud is starting the Perrysburg Farmers Market when she lived there in the 90s. Vicki's pet peeve is people who overpromise and do not deliver. President Stacy and fellow Rotarians, please welcome Vicki Stouffer.
President Sharon,
Brent?
and fellow Rotarians, all of you. It's great to be here today and to have 2 people to introduce. Zach and I have really had a lot of fun working together with some wonderful folks on the membership committee, and so it's a shared opportunity here today to yet have 2 more folks to introduce. And I'm going to start with Jeff Stegeman, who's right here to my right. Jeff is a lifelong Toledoan. He was born here and grew up in Otto Hills, went to school there. He went all the way down the street to U of T, where he graduated in finance. And while in college, he was working at Merrill Lynch and was president of UT's student managed portfolio, which led him to some work after school, which led him to MBT, Wealth Management, where he was a portfolio manager And now, Jeff is Vice President and Senior Portfolio Manager at Key Bank, working with foundations, individuals, families, all to develop and implement investment and risk management strategies. So whether it's being involved in local politics or supporting one of the region's not-for-profit organizations, one of the reasons Jeff remained here in Toledo is the ability to have an impact on the community. And as a result of his passion for urban revitalization, he co-founded and is president of Downtown 419. It's a not-for-profit focused on promoting social and economic vibrancy in downtown Toledo, and they've had some fun with that and done some good things. He serves with the Toledo Design Center Board and the University of Toledo Department of Finance Advisory Board. He calls Toledo downtown, that is, his home, for almost 10 years. And he enjoys traveling, heading out later this week to the West Coast. He likes to find different food and new bourbons. So Jeff's favorite pet peeve is restaurant servers who don't write down orders and then get your order wrong. So fellow Rotarians, please join me in a warm Rotary welcome for Jeff Stegeman. And as promised, now it's my pleasure to introduce Michael Abernathy as a new member. And Michael was born and raised in Fremont, where he attended Fremont Ross High School. He spent his college days at the University of Toledo as well, and he earned a BA in psychology, followed by coming to the business side and getting an MBA with a focus in leadership. After college, Michael spent 2 years working for ProMedica as a business analyst, and he then transitioned into commercial real estate, which he's found very interesting, with a focus downtown Toledo, in particular with office leasing. And Michael serves as vice president of events for Downtown 419. So there's a connection between these two gentlemen. And next week, you're going to find yet another connection, which we'll come to next week with another introduction. He also serves as vice chair for EPIC Toledo, which is part of the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce and their young professional portion of what they're doing. Rotarians, please do welcome Michael to Toledo Rotary. And just so you know, the goal next year is 75 new members. Now, that's the same goal we had this year. We didn't quite get there at 55, but we're going to make it next year, right? Thank you.
At this time, we're going to get going with our program because I understand we're going to probably be about 45 minutes. So I'm going to ask past President Walt Churchill to come up and introduce our speaker today. And he promised he did get here on time today. I don't know if any of you noticed that.
And thank you, the 17 people that asked me if my phone was on vibrate. Yeah. President Sharon, I'd like to thank you for the year and welcome you, pre-welcome you as a member of the Past Presidents Club. And one of the things, as long as you give a past president the mic, you've got to be careful. But anyhow, I see 4 new members coming in, and I would like to suggest that they take advantage of visiting privileges. Visiting other clubs can be a really great part of Rotary. Today, our speaker is Ford Bennett, and looking forward to his discussion about the deployment in Afghanistan. He joined Platoon Leaders course in Purdue back in 2006. He graduated from Purdue and got his commission May of 2009. He's got a long lineage of family dating back to the Civil War and the service. And I think it was a Yankee, and you had a choice back then. But one of his grandfathers, Bennett, was also a Navy fighter pilot in World War II in the Pacific. So he felt he wanted to maintain the family tradition of service. Ford served 6 years all across the Pacific Theater. Upon returning from active duty, he joined the United States Marine Corps Reserve. He was activated in 2016 with a team of 17 for training and deployment.
He and his team were deployed in Afghanistan for 7 months. His team was to mentor and advise the Republic of Georgia, a former Soviet state, alongside the Afghan National Army. Their mission was to prepare the Afghan army to defeat the Taliban. They not only had the Taliban to engage, but also the tribal forces. He returned in May of 17 and retired from Marine Corps Reserve. But you're always in the Marines, once a Marine, always a Marine. Ford is now a financial advisor with Morgan Stanley. Ford.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. There we are. Wake up. I'm kidding. Can you hear me in the back? Yes? Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's the largest honor to be introduced by such a hero and fellow warrior as Master Gunnery Sergeant Walt Churchill. So thank you again, Walt. So again, thank you everyone for having me. I hope this presentation lives up to the hype because I see we got a pretty full house here. So, Walt, in the back when we get started. Before I do get started, though, there is a little courtesy of Uncle Sam disclaimer I do have to read, so please bear with me before we begin. As a disclaimer, the names, exact locations, and mission details we omitted for security reasons. I will only discuss what is open source, i.e., what you can Google on your own. And believe me, you can Google a lot. I'm happy to answer questions during the presentation if desired, or at the end. I will be here after hours. Please keep in mind that due to reasons of national security, I'm not able to discuss military strategy, plans, or operational details. Any political views are that of my own and do not represent the U.S. government. They are the views expressed by a Marine who was on the ground in Afghanistan, not to be used for anything besides educational purposes. Also, this presentation is interactive. I'll be asking for feedback throughout the presentation and the next 30 to 40 minutes. If you have any questions during the presentation, raise your hand, proceed to the floor mic, and Walt in the back will illuminate you and ask away. So to begin, we have a quick video, or rather a series of videos, and I'm just going to let them roll straight through. And afterwards, I want feedback on how you felt. What did you think? The sounds, the sights. I can only do so much on a video, so I'm sorry. But I hope you do find it at least entertaining and thought-provoking. Walt?
We provide close air support and mainly artillery for units that don't have their own air or don't have their own artillery support within usually coalition battle space.
The U.S. Marines of the 5th Naval Air Gun Liaison Company works throughout Afghanistan as a bridge between the U.S., coalition, and Afghan forces. The teams are closely integrated with coalition forces, like the Georgian Army. Currently, the Georgians do not have any of their Air Force stationed in Afghanistan.
Be advised, pause rep, intersection route red and Tiffany's.
So to communicate with U.S. and coalition forces, members of ANGCO go on patrol with the Georgians to ensure quick and precise communications occur.
It's a much quicker link. It's straight. Everything out here is done primarily in English.
Even though they come from different parts of the world, the men of the 31st Georgian Battalion and the 5th ANGCO team feel a closer bond with each other.
But being with the Georgians and supporting them and being given this mission, we're a lot closer to them. We see, we go through the same things they do.
Third-generation U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant Christopher Francis volunteered to work with the same Georgian unit.
You go out with a squad of Marines, each and every one of them got your back. Working this liaison piece, it's the same way with the Georgian soldiers, but it's building that up, building that relationship.
It's a relationship that won't be easily forgotten. Reporting from Patrol Base Red V, Helmand Province, Afghanistan, I'm Army Staff Sergeant Daniel Simmons.
Nice. Oh, yeah, I got it.
One on the ground.
Lights, Walt. A lot of noise, right? Lots going on. So some of those were videos from Afghanistan. You saw the desert and the mud huts, the kind of haze that permeates the entire battle space. Other videos were of training environments or work we had done before we had gotten to Afghanistan. So at this time, I would love people to step for the floor mic and just answer a few questions. Believe me, there is no wrong answer. So what was your experience? These films cause any confusion? We're not sure what you're supposed to pay attention to. Was anyone overwhelmed? Like, be honest. The first time you get the breath of combat, it's incredibly overwhelming. And the best I can do is a video. I'd love to take you all there, but that's just not going to happen. So, please.
Is it constant noise?
Yes. So President Sharon asked, is it constant noise? Yes, the noise is constant. Even when you're not out on patrol, you are in the wire or the base perimeter, and you hear mortars, rockets, machine guns going off all the time. And you actually learn to sleep to it, weirdly enough, yes.
So day and night. Day and night.
So yes, she asked, is it day and night? Yes, it is day and night. As you can see, the last video there was of a helicopter shoot striking targets at night. And so my job as the controller of those aircrafts was to ensure that no matter the climb, the place, the temperature, the altitude, or the daylight or lack thereof, we could strike and defend our positions. Sir, please.
I was surprised right at the beginning that American troops were attached to a Georgian unit. In fact, as I watch the news, I get the impression it's the Americans training the Afghan army to defend themselves, and you don't hear anything about any other foreign troops in there, non-Afghan troops in there, let alone from a country as small as Georgia.
Thank you for bringing that up, and that's one of the conclusions I wanted these videos to lead you to. It is a very underscored, underwritten about mission. The idea is to work with NATO and non-NATO allies to reduce our presence and increase others' presence to work with the Afghans. It's part of a long-term plan, again, broad brushstrokes on purpose, to ultimately conclude our presence there. So thank you for bringing that up, but it is quite common. So everyone from the Italians, Polish, Georgians, even Kuwaitis and Japanese there. Sir.
How often are you attacked by the Taliban resistance in a week? How many times you are attacked?
Daily. It wouldn't always be a frontal assault or an ambush, but a lot of the times rockets or mortars ranging in size from 105 to 120 millimeters would just hit the base at sporadic events. So they would try to harassing fire. So I'm not trying to hit you specifically. I'm just trying to hit this general area and keep you on your toes. Does that answer your question, sir? Yes. Thank you. Sir.
One of the videos showed one of the soldiers headed forward with a minesweeper, and we had heard a lot about IEDs at one time and so on. What's the, I know they're dangerous mines and IEDs and stuff, but are they as prevalent as we used to hear about in the news?
Absolutely. So during the Russo-Afghan War of the 1980s, approximately 80 to 89, Russia basically seeded or sowed like seeds the entire country, that sometimes feels like. And so what that Georgian soldier was doing was walking with a handheld metal detector. And he would sweep it back and forth, walk very slow, and he would walk in single file. Because if you walk into a minefield, obviously nothing's marked, the path in is the path out. But they are quite everywhere. Even on the base, there were areas we couldn't go because they had not been cleared by proper minesweeping devices. Thank you. Sir.
First of all, thank you for your service. My stepfather was in the Marine Corps in the Pacific in World War II. So, quick question, hearing protection. Did you wear it? And if not, have you had any hearing loss?
What? Yes. So, being a controller of aircraft and bombs, I dropped ordnance of up to 1 ton, anywhere between 30 meters and 1,000 meters in front of me. So hearing protection was a must. As attached to our helmets were, you probably know them as things you'd wear when you cut a tree down, but ours were attached via cable to radios on our backs. So they would cancel out large impact noises like a clap. I won't do it. But I could have a conversation with Kathy and hear just fine. So technology has really come a long way. 5 to 10 years ago, we simply had wads of crap we shoved in our ears and hoped we could hear. Great question, sir. Thank you.
Is there a routine, a daily routine, or there's never a routine?
Kathy asked if there is a routine, and that's a good question. More or less, yes, but be prepared to be flexible at all times. The little adage we have is called Semper Gumby. Remember little Gumby dude from TV? Yes? Yeah, so Semper Gumby, always be flexible, because there'd be days I get woke up at 2, 3 in the morning, and someone's screaming at me, hey, we got to go on patrol because we just got attacked. Well, okay, suit up, Superman, and get the hell out there. So yes, the routine was broken at times, but try to get your food in when you could and sleep when you could. That answer your question?
Yes.
All right, wonderful.
We're going to go into more, but...
Yes, we'll go in a little more. Oh, how many people were there? So Bagram itself, which is a great segue, thank you. We did not rehearse that. I appreciate that. Zoom in, is this quite large airfield in northeast Afghanistan near the Hindu Kush Mountains. Can everyone see that? All right. It's just north of Kabul, about an hour drive, probably less if you were doing 70, but in our giant trucks, quite slow. Again, that large airfield was placed by the Russians, which we then took in 2001, thanks to the Air Force paratroopers. It's since been built up into a small city of about 15,000. And that, again, is a NATO base, so Georgians, Japanese, Korean, Italian, Czechoslovakian, the MPs, and then obviously the U.S. Army, it makes up the majority, and just a handful of the Marines. So on that base of 15,000, there were my 17 Marines and another 17 infantry advisors that we attached to work with this battalion, roughly 750 Georgian soldiers. Answer your question? Good. All right. Oh, we got someone else. Sir.
Couple questions. There was one of the visuals was there was a very healthy stand of some kind of crop. I don't know if that was in Afghanistan or a training site, but what is it that they were growing there?
So there they were growing corn. They were near the base, so the poppy harvest wasn't around us. In southern Helmand, they would grow poppy unfiltered. I'm not a drug dealer, so I don't know, but uncut heroin. It's a large seed, about like yay large. Once it blooms, they can cut it. Sometimes the Afghans would pop them in their mouths, and they'd be on patrolled high with fully automatic weapons.
So the other question I have is, what are the three things that the U.S. population ought to know about what's going on in Afghanistan?
It's still going, is number one. I would say number two, and again, these are all just personal opinions, so take it or leave it, is that it's a difficult fight, but a fight that we can win given the proper leadership, the proper funding, and the proper training. To be an advisor is the toughest mission, a mission I am grateful to have done, but it is not for the weak or the faint of heart. And three, that support, although it seems old, is needed. Sir.
A couple questions. I had understood that Al-Qaeda and ISIS were playing a part, maybe ISIS to a larger extent. We have also heard that they talk about truce and something being worked out with the Taliban. Could you comment on that?
I can comment slightly. Yes, they were in our area, in and around. They provide weapons, training to the local insurgency. However, we never met them face-to-face because they never wanted to stand toe-to-toe with our might. So having to weed them out of the local populace is the difficult mission. But yes, they were in and around there. And I hope they are trying to find a truce because after so long, everyone's tired. Does that answer your question, sir?
What about the possibility of top government working outside?
I hope. Solving Afghan problems is the way out. So yes. I think we'll have to move on now unless anyone has any really pressing questions that can't wait to the end. Wonderful. Slide. That's right. I can do it. So here's our team, our family, if you can see that. There I'm in the front row at the bottom. This is 17 Marines I deployed with. They were my team and they were my family. I would go to hell and back with these Marines because I know they would follow me. And I know when I got hit, they would drag me back out. Interesting thing about this is usually when people think Marine, they think like what I look like. And that's absolutely not the case. These 17 Marines came from all walks of life, all different, all the daring levels of education, but they all came together to fight and win this fight as one. And I was honored to have served alongside them. That group of 17 is broken down into, further teams of 4, 5, or 6. I was one of the smaller team leaders. You can see I'm pictured there on the left. These small teams are called FICs, or Firepower Control Team Leaders. And our job was to be where the rubber meets the road in combat. When working with our allies or the supported militaries, we would attach them and provide that artillery you saw in those aircrafts because it was not organic to them. Another team broken down, you can see, and our teams were interchangeable. So if one Marine fell, we could swap. This was that headquarters element. Their job is to provide overall battlefield coordination between the two FICs and communicate with higher echelons of command, both Marine Corps and foreign military. So they were the central communication node, if you will, between those of us who were 20 miles away from the nearest piece of civilization and help. So one of the first stops on our pre-deployment training, so this is before we got to Afghanistan, is I had the opportunity to go to Bulgaria with that same group of Marines. Here you can see a Marine artillery unit working with Bulgarian Army counterparts, and their mission that takes place all across Eastern Europe is meant to train allies near the Russian border against possible and further aggression. More training as the Marine on the top right there is looking to show the foreign allies, the gentleman on the left with the funky colored camis, what happens when and what our procedures are like so they can better refine their own. So one of our Marines and actually a handful of them, had the opportunity to work with foreign weapons. So these weapons are organic to our new allies in Eastern Europe, but are also used by ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. This is the AK-47 assault rifle, which is a light rifle but always fires on fully automatic. This is the rocket-propelled grenade, or RPG. It's used against armored vehicles and unprotected troops. The original intention of this weapon is to blast a small hole in the side of a vehicle, creating overpressure. And I can describe that later on if you'd like. The idea of overpressure is that it kills the occupants with fragmentation, pressure, and immense heat. Think oven. Finally, one of the senior enlisted leaders got to work with the RPK heavy machine gun. So our allies, the Georgians, would have the same equipment. So it was good to familiarize ourselves with them in the event that one of those Georgian soldiers fell. Maybe we're out of ammo. We can pick up that equipment and continue the fight. Last piece of small arms is the Dragunov sniper rifle. Not as accurate as it sounds as compared to our weapons, but still effective in the right hands. This is a light tank as opposed to our heavy M1A1 Abrams. I'm sure you've seen pictures of that. This has far more mobility but less armor and less protection, less firepower. Here's the inside of that tank. Again, getting to work with these weapons was an incredible opportunity to see equipment that we had been trained to destroy. Since, again, created by Mother Russia. Their weapons, both individual and heavy equipment, have proliferated the battlefield due to mass production and being relatively cheap and inexpensive. The problem now is, how do you identify friend from foe in future linear conflicts? Quick snap of the countryside where we got to work with those tanks. You can see them on the left, which are basically mobile mortar platforms. Fire 120 millimeter mortar, roughly like that, about yay long, into targets. And here's how we did that. So in a training environment, it looks a bit more messy, but what we're doing in this trench after occupation is to teach and mentor our junior Marines to do the job in case we no longer can. We work with communication assets, the big green boxes you see up front there. We draw terrain sketches, literally on cardboard boxes in case your digital materials happen to fail, and to properly communicate with aircraft, artillery, and other adjacent units. The proper tactics, techniques, and procedures of close air support and calling for artillery fire. Training this simplest and easiest of tasks to perfection in a training environment means to do it pretty darn well in the chaos of Afghanistan. Here I'm pictured in the center with my platoon commander, a major, one rank above me, and a Marine to my left. Our job in the field command unit was to go over battlefield coordination, command, and control. My job was to ensure that all friendly units worked in harmony, and as the central hub for information, ensure that communication flowed efficiently, effectively to the right people. Also that, and when targets were presented, they were the correct targets, not friendly targets. One of the interesting things I got to see and witness from our former enemies, previous Soviet states, was how they do their work very similar to ours. Here, the mortar mobile unit is laying the battery, which is a fancy way of saying, I know where I am on this earth, so I can accurately strike targets and not hit friendly forces. We do roughly the same thing. Little motivational picture, because it isn't every day that you get to stand on top of a Russian tank, so you got to have a little bit of fun. If you want to zoom in, Walt. This is that same mortar column moving on to the next day's training event. However, when they started moving, it was pitch black, and I had this sinking death feeling in my stomach. I always believed that when I heard that noise, it would mean the enemy had found my team of 4 or 5 Marines, and they were on their way to kill us all. Luckily, on this day, it was just our allies moving to another location. But that sound is something that I will never forget. That sound of heavy armor and clanking metal. The last few shots here is we have of a 1960s water truck. So all these vehicles are Cold War era. So apparently you can fix anything with duct tape and baler twine. The reason for that is, though, again, Russia has pushed this equipment all across the globe. It's cheap, parts are available, so with the right know-how and the right technicians, you can fix, again, anything. A different variant of that tank, this is an anti-tank weapon, so it's designed to kill Russian tanks now, but our tanks previously. Just a heavy, short-barreled weapon at the front. So now we move back to the U.S. for our pre-deployment training. And excuse me, because it is very hot here. So here we got stuck in the great state of Florida. Gator-infested swamps where we were conducting close air support exercise. There was a 12-foot gator in that position the next day. And we were diving through it, covered in diesel fuel and mud. Motivation, right? Good. But as always, you can see the Marines with thumbs up. They're in high spirits. So no matter what we do, no matter what happens, those Marines will always get the job done. Gators included. We followed our work in Florida to North Carolina. That's Camp Lejeune. So it's like this every day of the year down there. Hot, humid, muggy, and we're running around with 40 pounds on our bodies, carrying each other on those damn stretchers. Seems stupid, I know, but the idea is when you're out on your own and you have that collapsible stretcher with you, you can get a Marine home. So we ran around for about 5 to 8 miles with each other on our shoulders. A little bit of motivation. Here we're in Germany running up and down small mountains to condition ourselves because our deployment to Bagram, if you Google this, is about 5,000 feet of elevation. So nearly a mile above where we are now is where we were going to conduct combat operations. So our senior enlisted Marines there in the center were training our junior enlisted out on the fringes there to survive. You get Germany, where we spent about 3 weeks training close air support lanes, counter IEDs, like you had mentioned, sir. We got to work with the minesweepers and other sorts of devices, casualty evacuation drills, combat conditioning, all under the guise of the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force. And they would simulate combat by firing blanks over your head, throwing things called RD sims, which look like sticks of dynamite, and they sound the same, but they don't actually explode and hurt anybody. But the noise, that whistling sound that you hear in the movies, is pretty close. So that goes off by your ears, you're ringing, and you still got to move forward. The U.S. Army can crank up and down the intensity based off of a unit's performance. The idea being the more you sweat and bleed in training, the less you sweat and bleed in war. These are the vehicles that we use to fight IEDs. Sir, I know you had asked about some of the equipment that we had besides the minesweeper. This is an MRAP, mine-resisted, anti-ambush, ambush protected. Thank you, Walt. So it weighs several dozen tons. I don't know the exact schematics, but it's basically on a dump truck frame with a giant metal box slapped on the back. It would house 7 of us with all of our combat gear with a small door in the back to get in and out of. Not the most efficient thing, but it worked. The principal design of this vehicle is a V-shaped hull and heavy armor on the side. So when the IED goes off under you, the vehicle is picked up and dropped back down, but the energy of the blast is sent off to the sides, so away from that central compartment there with the 3 windows. Walt, can you slide to my right? Walt, can you slide the picture a little to the right? Okay. If you guys can see it, one of the mine rollers there on the front of the vehicles is just that. It was designed to roll over IEDs and mines. So that would set off the blast, destroy the mine roller, but leave the occupants of the vehicle behind it protected. Now, there are countermeasures to that pretty easily. If you think about it, it's not too hard, but better have and not need than need and not have. And finally, Afghanistan, which you all want to hear about. You also hear me in the back because it got real quiet real fast. Everyone still there? All right, very good. So, like we had said earlier, the Georgians were our mission. So were the Afghans, the Afghan National Army, the Afghan National Police, etc. But the Georgians were our mission. We were to train, advise, and assist the Republic of Georgia alongside the Afghan National Army to fight and win a counterinsurgency. The hope is that one day they can take over that mission on their own and continue to fight against Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, etc. I'm honored to have served with these soldiers and Marines, and it is one of the highlights of my young life. Here we're conducting medical, or rather casualty evacuation drills. So again, you can see the back of that same large truck, it's a really tight door. So me plus about 100 pounds of equipment's got to get in and out of that efficiently. Now I'm on a stretcher and 4 people are trying to lift me up into it, to give you a visual. So it seems minute and small, but rehearsing the minutia, becoming a professional at the minutia is what's going to guarantee or help to guarantee you come home in one piece. So lots of practice on the smallest of things. Besides working with the Georgians, and through a lot of coordination and effort, I was able to send 2 of our Marines down to Kabul. So this is the first time this has ever happened. They were to train, advise, and mentor Afghan air coordinators, again with the idea that they can pick up the mission after we leave. Here's where the real rubber meets the road, and Afghans fighting an Afghan war, the way to finish things. And this is honestly one of the highlights of our deployment. One of our instructors, or rather one of the Afghan instructors nearest the screen there, is taking what we have in English, putting it into Pashto or Dari, and pushing that information out so then they can go out and practice those skills. One of those skills being how to shoot an azimuth or a direction with a compass. So when you're calling in close air support, you provide your aircraft or your artillery direction distance from you to that target. Well, if you screw that up, even 1 degree, 2 degrees, 5,000 meters out, you're way out to lunch, as they say. You're bowling a gutter ball, not a strike. My team chief and dear, dear friend now, working with those same controllers to teach them map reading. So again, if you don't know where you are, you don't know where the enemy is, really what good are you? One of the things people always ask, like, what do you need to do this job? Patience and boatloads of it. You need to be able to speak slowly and communicate it in a manner that you will not be misunderstood. The slightest mistransgression or the slightest missed word can be the difference between a friendship with an Afghan and him shooting you in the back. So being very careful and cognizant of what you say and how you say it. One of our senior leaders getting to work with, again, Russian helicopters. These things have been around forever, and they're still in use today by the Afghan National Army. But all work and no play makes Jack or Ford a very, very dull boy. A little bit of laughter would help. I know it's hot. Thank you. I'm sweating up here too. So, but I was practicing wrapping my face to keep the filthy air out of it. So I put a Kevlar on top of that, and I could still breathe somewhat. So that's a skill we all learned very quickly. A little bit of scenery. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's a sunset on the base. It's really a beautiful country. I wish I could say go there and look and be a tourist, but you obviously can't. Maybe in 20 years. But the raw primal beauty of this land is unmeasurable. It's left an impression on me that I will never forget. The Hindu Kush that are covered in snow year-round is unmistakable. And that sunset, because when it's not too hazy, is just crystal, and the stars are magnificent. But you're in Afghanistan fighting a war, or celebrating Christmas. Thanks to my wonderful family, love you guys, we were able to have a little bit of Christmas and be reminded of home. One of our missions was, and hardly ever put on Fox or CNN, one of our Marines here is sharing food with local children, and we were told not to do it. The reason we're not supposed to do it is because there are groups like the Red Cross, USAID, etc., that are run by the government and told that is your job. The risk that he's exposing himself to is one of those kids can sneak up behind you and drop a live grenade into your pouch or a pocket, which has happened and happens all the time. But since we're Marines and we tended to do what we know to be best, and at the right occasion, we share what we had, because these kids probably hadn't eaten in days. And although they may look like they're 4, they're probably closer to 10. When a soldier or Marine is injured, part of our job was to coordinate with Hire to have medical evacuation helicopters come in and get us. These things are flying ambulances. What you see driving around with full trauma suites are now in the air. So you have about 1 hour, the golden hour, to get a casualty off the battlefield and back to a Role 1 hospital. So our full trauma suite on the airfield could do anything from reattach limbs to any type of the life-saving medical procedures. Our unit's from Florida, so we had to represent our home 10,000 miles away. One of the things we battled besides the elements, treble forces, as Walt had said, was the weather. So yes, it's a desert, it's hot, but it's also almost a mile up. So the torrential rain, winds, and snow are truly something to contend with, especially when your vehicle weighs that many tons. So here we're conducting recovery operations. A vehicle had broken down. Now this exposes us to a lot of risk, obviously, because we have to go very slow. But it has to be done. You're not going to leave a vehicle out behind. This is a photo of day-to-day operations. Here you see a Marine, a patrol leader, the gentleman to the left of the interpreter there with a white shirt, working with Georgian counterparts to his left in the Afghan National Army. Before leaving the wire, the base perimeter, plans would be discussed, concerns addressed, and communication established to ensure everyone was on the same page. You always kept your friends close and your enemies closer. Small things like never turning your back on a supposed ally and keeping one eye on your interpreter and one on the folks to your left and right is key. So the Marine in the truck, because this is a view looking down, is watching over everybody. And I see that I am running out of time, and I do apologize. So at this point, I'd like to take any questions, and I can take them at the end.
Thank you for your service. Let's take the questions right here. Ford has graciously agreed to stay and answer any of the questions that you may have. And Ford, as a thank you for being with us today and hearing your fabulous story. I know this doesn't seem like much, but we really appreciate what you do for the country and for us. And a donation will be made to Polio Plus in your name, as well as this gift of a book underwritten by one of our Rotarians and written by one of our Rotarians. So thank you very much for being with us today, for being a great club member and service to our country. And I can't get him to quit calling me ma'am. He just, we've tried. He won't quit calling me ma'am. So thank you today also to Katie, Susan, and Brent for sharing the gift of Rotary. We look forward to our new members getting active with the club. Just so you know, next week we've got Matt Markey with the Toledo Blade. Today is actually my last meeting. Your executive committee will be out of town next week with Rotary International happening in Toronto. So past President Stacey Hammer has agreed to step in and be once more behind the mic for us next week. I do want to take an opportunity to thank our program committee for the last year, all the great programs that we've had and the opportunity we've actually had to hear from some of our own Rotarians. So program committee, thank you very much. So for the last time, Chuckles. Yes. Maybe, I don't know.
A Marine drill instructor had just chewed out one of his recruits. And as he was walking away, he turned to the young soldier and said, "I guess when I die, you'll come and dance on my grave." The recruit replied, "Not me, Sarge. No, sir. I promised myself that when I got out of the Marines, I'd never stand in another line."
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you for your service this year and for ending our meetings with a little happy note. On a sad note, I'm going to ask you to please remember Frank and Francis Viviano in your prayers with the passing of Sandy Viviano. And with that, I encourage you to go out and make a difference in somebody's world today. Thank you so much.